Hello everybody, it's Kerrigan here, and today we're talking about a new MMO, and that is Dungeons & Dragons Neverwinter. Now what is this game? Have any of you really heard of it? Well, it's an MMO from Cryptic Studios. Now if you don't know who they are, they're the same people who brought us City of Heroes, Champions Online, and Star Trek Online. So they've got a few MMOs under their belt, and they kind of innovated the whole hero MMO, I guess you could call it, subgenre. So now they're jumping into Dungeons & Dragons, and it's been slated for a release of late 2013. Now this is the official release. It has actually begun the open beta. If you're worried about playing the game, because open betas, a lot of them at least seem to wipe your characters, because when you move into the release they want everybody to start off all level and at level 1 or level 0, whatever. That's not going to be happening now. So if that's what's been holding you back, these characters will not be wiped. So jump into the game, give it a shot, see what you think of it, because it's free to play and the characters are going to remain. Now, where is this set? This is set in the Forgotten Realms. If you played the previous Neverwinter Nights games, then this is going to seem a little bit familiar to you. Now, don't get confused though, because this actually isn't tied to those games at all. So it's its own kind of thing. It's in the same realm, but it's not tied to those. Basically, you're going to start off by making your character. You have quite a few choices. First, you're going to pick your race. You have the half-orcs, humans, elves, half-elves, dwarves, halfling, tiefling, and then they've got one that says coming soon. So you've got a good amount of choices. Now each of them has their own specific looks to them. So if you're going to pick your race based on aesthetic purposes, and let's say you want the big race, obviously you're going to go with half-orcs, or if you want to be the small kind of race, you're going to go with the halfling. So that'll kind of lock you into your choices based on if you want your race to look a specific way aesthetically. But beyond that, each race has a set of traits to them. Now I believe there's 3 for each of these, and most of them are just ability rolls. I think 2 of them are ability rolls, but then you get some sort of bonus, and this is going to be something that might determine your class choice as well, because for an example, orcs get 5% more critical strike damage. So that kind of makes them a standout if you wanted to be a DPS class, like a great weapon fighter, a trickster rogue, or a control wizard. Because the greater critical strikes, obviously you're a pure damage class, so you're going to want to be able to deliver as much damage as possible. Whereas some of the other races actually don't have bonuses like that to DPS. They might have a tanking bonus, or they might have a evasion bonus. So while I think that's really nice that they give something that makes these races stand out, it also is kind of a crutch, because if you want to be the highest damage, you might have to roll a specific race. It's got its benefits and its downsides to having races with certain specific traits, like the 5% more critical strike damage. Now let's move on to classes here. We've got 5 classes so far, and there's a 6th class that has been locked. So I don't know when we'll be getting that. I guess we'll see. They haven't really announced anything on it as far as I know. And the first class that comes to my mind is a Guardian Fighter. Now it's pretty obvious what this class is. It's your general tanking class, but it does have a different mechanic to it. You actually have to manually block in this game. So it's going to make things a bit more entertaining, because if you see a big attack, you're actually going to have to put your shield in the way instead of relying on some sort of silly cooldown because you've got the shield there that you can't use. That really doesn't make a ton of sense. So it's a bit more action oriented, and you have to actually aim your character, and put the shield in the way and use the button, and it's just more engaging. Now let's say you want to find a group with this class. There is a group finder in the game. If you do use that, expect to be set as a tank, because there is only one true tank class in the game, and that is Guardian Fighter. Unless you happen to somehow get paired with another Guardian, which I guess could happen, expect to be the tank. It's just what role you're going to be put into. Now that doesn't say that that doesn't mean that this class can't do some good damage. My friend rolls a Guardian Fighter, and he's been top damage before when we've run through places. So don't think that just because this is a tank they can't inflict some pain, because they can bring pain. So if you want a tank, don't let that hold you back, deciding that, this class can't do the damage that I'm looking to do. Next we have the Great Weapon Fighter, and you can kind of consider this the DPS warrior if you want to find some sort of way to compare this class to other MMOs. That's going to give you the kind of greatest clue on to what this class is about. They use big two-handed smacking sticks. They have huge weapons, and they have a few movement increasing abilities to cover ground. You can get a leap, and they have a sprint as their shift ability, and I believe they have another charge to a target. So this class, since they're a melee class, has a few ways of getting to their target in case somebody's trying to run from them. You know, they can cover the ground and get to you, hopefully, without getting crowd controlled. And they also get bonuses. Now, what their bonuses are for is for basically staying in the fight longer and hitting more enemies. So this class wants to be up in the mess and hitting as many enemies as possible and staying in that fight, because they're going to get damage bonuses and other things for doing that. So it's a class that's up in the action, mucking it up with the Guardian. Now next we have the complete opposite of the previous two classes I've talked about. We have the Devoted Cleric. Now this isn't a traditional stand back and heal type of class like you might have seen in some other MMOs, where you just sit back and bomb heals. You can be facing any direction. This is a healing class that does damage. So best way I can explain it is if you've played Age of Conan, the Tempest is set, or if you played World of Warcraft and played as a Discipline Priest. Think something like that. Yes, these classes bring heals, they do their job great, but they also can drop some serious DPS if you know how to play them. It's a really interesting class because it's not super boring. To me at least, most healing classes are boring because that's all you do is kind of sit there and bomb some heals. I really like actually being able to mix it up with some damage and provide that extra benefit to my group of having me be there. Now, this is the only healing class in the game. So, just like the Guardian, if you go into a group, expect to be the healer unless there is another divine or devoted cleric. So, it's just going to kind of be the role that you're set in. Now, it doesn't mean you can't do damage. I've been up in the top damage as well when I have played my devoted cleric. So, this class can bring some real pain. They have some really hard-hitting abilities. They just don't cast as often as what it seems like maybe the Control Wizard does. Now, the one thing about this class, though, is it's probably one of the hardest classes to play, because at level 10 you're going to get a new thing that allows you to have basically two forms, and each of your abilities is going to have two sides to it, and they're going to be different in each form that you're in, and you have two different resources, or one that you build and one takes away the resource. So it's kind of a complicating class to play, but if you get it down, it's really engaging and a lot of fun. So it'll be interesting to see if they tweak this anymore and kind of make a resource able to be gained in the secondary stance. But for now, it's fun. It's just pretty difficult to get down. And then next, we're looking at the Control Wizard. This is probably the heaviest crowd control out of all the classes, but most likely the most fragile as well. That's why it has that crowd control. You have to keep things away from you, you know, as it says Control Wizard. It's kind of a given. That's what they do. Now this is your basic range casting DPS, your mage, your wizard. The difference is that they're really heavy on the CC side compared to most other MMOs. They just can control things like crazy. So in PvE, that seems to be okay. They do a good job, but they have to keep things away from them because if it gets to them, it's going to kill them. PvP though is where this class really stands out. They have a ton of crowd control, and in PvP, having 2 or 3 control wizards on your side, you can absolutely dominate flags because you can just crowd control their healers or crowd control their tank, and it's just repeated over and over, especially if you have numerous ones. It doesn't seem like there is a resistance timer for CC, so if you CC somebody for 2 seconds, it seems like they can be CC'd again for 2 seconds and 2 seconds and 2 seconds instead of eventually wearing down to 0. So if you have numerous control wizards, it's kind of overpowered for PvP. Whether they're going to change that at all, I kind of actually hope so. I guess we'll see. The game's only in open beta, so there's probably going to be some sort of changes. And then the last class that we're looking at is the Trickster Rogue. This is the stealth class of the game, your basic, rogue. They have dual wielding, and they have little stabbing sticks and all that fun stuff. They have high burst DPS, and they have a teleporting mechanic. Basically, if you've played WoW, like Shadow Step, they can get behind you, and it seems to kind of repeat. So if somebody uses one of their shift abilities to dodge, they're going to follow you. Now, for how long can they follow you, I'm not exactly sure, but it's pretty nice, especially for PvP when targets like a healer is trying to escape you. As with the Cleric, this is another class that has 2 sides. You have a normal side for your abilities, and then you have a stealth side for your abilities. So learning exactly how to maximize this class is going to take some work, because you're going to want to make sure to use your resources from each of your sides. independently, and how to maximize what's going to be the best CC or the best damage, or what you need to do at the right time. It's just going to be a little bit more complicated than some of the other classes. Overall, none of these classes truly breaks the mold for your average MMO, but they aren't exactly copycats either, because like the Control Wizard brings more CC, and the Trickster Rogue has 2 different stances where he kind of has 2 different ways to use his abilities, and same with the Cleric. That's just a basic rundown of what Dungeons & Dragons Neverwinter is. It's just basically going over the classes and over the races and the setting for the game. There's a lot more to talk about. I have a lot more that I want to talk about, so if you guys like this and found the information interesting and want to hear more, of course, like the video, leave some comments down below. I always like talking with you guys, so please do that stuff. Let me know that you want to see more of this. I plan to put out at least a few more videos going over gameplay and fun factor and some other things that I find interesting that this game has that maybe some other games don't have, and some things I would like to see in Dungeons & Dragons Neverwinter. With that, I'm going to leave you guys with about another minute worth of gameplay here, just showing me and my friend Ufki wrap up this dungeon. So, as always, this is Kurgan, and thanks for watching.
Yes, I helped to steal the crown at Neverwinter. I was a loyal Nasher, but after Karzov left me to die down here, I don't know him anything. I'll tell you what I know about where Karzov is now, and also where he stashed the crown. Hey, if you see that treacherous bastard, remind him that loyalty works both ways, preferably while you're twisting a blade in his guts.